Hello and welcome to my YouTube. This YouTube is remembering the year 1961. At the end of this, I'm going to play 5 of my favorite songs from 1961. But first, let's go back and relive what was life like back in 1961. I was 17 years old and president of my high school junior class. I got my first electric guitar for Christmas that year, and me and my best friend Art Wilson played all of the popular songs, and we used to play for high school dances occasionally. John F. Kennedy was President of the United States, and America was very excited about our handsome young president and his beautiful wife Jacqueline, who brought class and style to the White House. Little did we know, and little did I know, what would happen over the next 2 years, because in 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated. This is a picture of the funeral procession. This is Jackie and the 2 children coming down the steps of the Capitol. In the right-hand corner, you see the back and the head of a sailor. That was a 19-year-old sailor. And how do I know that he was 19 years old? Because that sailor was me. I was standing there as a member of the United States Navy Blue Jacket Choir. We were flown to Washington, D.C. to sing for the funeral of President John F. Kennedy. Back to 1961. Back then, we didn't send humans into space. It was too dangerous. So we sent chimpanzees and monkeys. We sent Ham, the chimp. He was sent into space and safely returned to Earth. The infamous Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba began on April 17th, and 2 days later, it failed. And those men that were not killed outright were taken prisoners by Fidel Castro's army. A huge disaster for the CIA. Newton Minow, there's a name for you. Newton Minow was chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, and in a hearing, he described commercial television programming as a vast wasteland. And this became big news. I mean, no one had ever heard of Newton Minow, and no one could name the chairman of the FCC, but all the newspapers carried this story, the vast wasteland. President Kennedy delivers his famous "We choose to go to the moon in this decade" speech given at Rice University. 8 years later, on July 20th, 1969, an American stood on the face of the moon. Roger Maris of the New York Yankees hits 61 home runs, setting a new record, breaking Babe Ruth's. Now, in 1998, a guy by the name of Mark McGwire broke Maris's record. He hit 70 home runs. This is an actual photograph of Mark McGwire hitting that 70th home run. I was there. You can't see me because I'm slightly off camera. I was in the 5th row behind the Cardinals dugout when McGwire hit this home run. And here's what I saw. All around me, all over the stadium, people were holding up their cell phones. Now, these were not iPhones. None of us had cameras back then. We had flip phones. But what we were doing, and I did it too, we all called someone we knew or loved, a family member or a best friend, and we said, "Listen to this. Listen, Roger or Mark McGwire just hit a 70th home run. Can you hear it? Can you hear it?" We shared that moment with our cell phones. President Kennedy sends 18,000 military advisors to South Vietnam in '61. This was really the beginning of the Vietnam War. The average annual salary for a man was $5,700. If you were a woman, it was $4,600. If you wanted to build a new home, it would cost you $17,200. And a brand new Ford cost $2,645. A gallon of gas cost only 31 cents a gallon. And now it's over $3. The first Red Barn restaurant opens in Springfield, Ohio, and they're still going strong. The very first Six Flags opens in Arlington, Texas, and it was called Six Flags Over Texas. But now they're all over the country. What were the top TV shows in 1961? The top show was Wagon Train, a Western. Number 2 was Bonanza, a Western. Number 3 was Gunsmoke, a Western. Gunsmoke was on for 11 years. Finally, something that wasn't a Western, Hazel, a situation comedy about a maid named Hazel. And finally, Perry Mason, the lawyer. And Perry never lost a case. Never. If you were in trouble, you wanted Perry Mason because he didn't lose. So what were the top grossing movies of 1961? And by the grossing, I mean which ones made the most money? The biggest money maker, 101 Dalmatians, a cartoon by Disney. Second, West Side Story. And this also won the Oscar for Best Picture that year. Third, The Guns of Navarone, a World War II fictional movie starring Gregory Peck, David Niven, and Anthony Quinn. These soldiers were sent to destroy these huge guns that were stopping the Allied fleet from coming through. Number 4, El Cid with Charlton Heston and Sophia Loren. El Cid, who led the armies, both the Christian and the Muslim armies in Spain. And I remember vividly the ending of this movie, very emotional. El Cid gets killed, okay? He's dead. So what they do is they strap him onto his horse and they take this flag and they put it in his hands and they open the gates to the city and he comes riding out leading the army and his army is victorious. And the final scene is El Cid on his horse is trotting down the beach all alone, totally dead, but very emotional. The Absent-Minded Professor, starring Fred MacMurray, another Disney movie. That year, the Oscar for Best Original Song in 1961 was Never on Sunday, one of my favorites, and I'm going to play it in a few minutes. The infamous Adolf Eichmann was tried in Jerusalem, found guilty and put to death for crimes against humanity. The Berlin Wall is started. A B-52 bomber crashes near Goldsboro, North Carolina, carrying 2 nuclear bombs. Fortunately, they didn't go off. The Freedom Riders begin. These were men and women, black and white, who got on buses and ventured down into the South to try to break the segregation in public places and restrooms and restaurants and waiting rooms. Unfortunately, many of these buses were attacked and burned. The entire United States ice skating team was killed in a plane crash in Belgium. There were 38 members of the skating team and their coaches, 49 Americans altogether, totally wiped out the American skaters in America. Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin completes the first orbit of Earth by a human. Huge success for the Russians in the space race. The silicon chip was invented in 1961. This is what the first one looks like. Really amazingly crude in comparison to what a modern silicon chip. This is what drives all of our computers and our iPhones and our iPads and our Androids. Silicon chips, lots of them. A little group called the Beatles started playing in a club called the Cavern Club in Liverpool, England. And notice that the drummer is not Ringo Starr. He came along later. John F. Kennedy establishes the Peace Corps. These were men who went all over the world doing good things. In fact, a couple of good friends of mine that I graduated with from high school joined the Peace Corps and served in South America and the Caribbean. The Beach Boys recorded their first recording, and it was called Surfin'. Now, not Surf City, that came along years later. This was called Surfin', but it established the Beach Boys in that surfing California surf scene. This is the song and the record that put them there. The first electric toothbrush was first introduced in 1961. Barbie's boyfriend, Ken, was introduced in 1961, and he came in both brunette and blonde. You could switch his hair. It was just a little plastic cap. Finally, Barbie had, and I have sat through many, many weddings because my daughter, Allison, loved Barbies when she was growing up. This is what women's fashions looked like in 1961. And this hairstyle was very popular. Teflon frying pans were first introduced in 1961. Non-stick cooking, finally. And Fritos. Fritos were first introduced in 1961. And this is what I started to say. So if you had a regular steel or aluminum pan, then you could buy this new product called Pam, which you just spray it on. And of course, I have 1 or 2 cans in my pantry right now. The other non-stick solution, if you didn't want Teflon. The famous IBM Selectric typewriter was introduced. Let me tell you a little personal story about this typewriter. Many years later in life, I worked for one of the world's largest computer companies, Control Data Corporation. This was our corporate headquarters in Minneapolis. Control Data sued IBM in a huge multi-million-dollar lawsuit for copyright infringements. So the president and CEO of Control Data issued a memo one morning telling all of the secretaries in Control Data to get rid of their IBM Selectric typewriters. Since we were suing IBM, he didn't want them using those electric typewriters from IBM. Well, all of the secretaries at corporate headquarters got up from their desk, walked off, came down in front of the building in the parking lot, and protested for several hours. The net is, by 5 p.m. that afternoon, all the secretaries were back at their desk with their IBM Selectric typewriters. CoverGirl Cosmetics was introduced in 1961. Mrs. Butterworth pancake syrup first came out in 1961. They have since changed the name because this was considered very racial. Coca-Cola introduces Sprite to compete head-to-head with 7-Up. Coffee Mate is introduced, the first non-dairy creamer. And I've got some of that in my closet too. And Pampers. Oh my gosh. I can't count how many dozen Pampers I put on my daughter when she was growing up. So, who was born in 1961? You'll recognize these names. Barack Obama, the future President of the United States. Eddie Murphy, comedian and movie star. George Clooney, 1961 baby. And Princess Diana, all born in 61. On August 19th, TWA showed the first in-flight movie. The movie, titled By Love Possessed, which starred Lana Turner, was shown to first-class passengers only. But that was the beginning. That was the very first one where you sat in a plane and watched a movie. On ABC, they introduced a new show called Wide World of Sports, and Jim McKay was the host. And this quickly became one of the most popular sports programs on all of television. I watched it without fail. They went all over the world covering sports. On TV, we began watching a doctor by the name of Ben Casey. This was starring Vince Edwards. But he had competition because Dr. Kildare also came out that year, played by Richard Chamberlain. So 2 doctor shows. Mr. Ed, the comedy TV show about the talking horse. That's who Mr. Ed is. He's the horse. The Dick Van Dyke Show, very, very popular. The first Hardee's restaurant opened in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And there are lots of them around today. So, who were the most popular singers in 1961? Well, of course, Elvis was still. He dominated from 1956 through to the 60s. Chubby Checker, The Twist, Let's Twist Again. Bobby V, love the hair, wish I had it. The Everly Brothers, one of my favorite, in fact, my favorite group at the time. My friend Art and I, we played all of their songs because they were easy to play and it required 2 harmonies, duets. And Connie Francis was the 5th most popular singer in 1961. What were the top songs of 1961? Billboard tracks all of this. Here they are. Number 1, Tossin' and Turnin' by Bobby Lewis. Biggest hit of the year. Number 2, I Fall to Pieces by Patsy Cline. Michael rowed the boat ashore, hallelujah, by the Highwaymen. Crying by Roy Orbison. I'm going to play and sing this a little bit in a few minutes. Oh, by the way, P.S. Roy was not blind. A lot of people think, well, he wears sunglasses like other blind people. But he could see. What happened is he forgot his sunglasses or his regular glasses one time, and so in desperation he put on these prescription sunglasses, and he liked them so well on stage he just decided to start wearing them all the time. So it became his trademark. Unlike Ray Charles, who was blind, Roy Orbison could see perfectly well. He just chose to wear them. And now I'd like to play 5 of my favorite songs from 1961. Was all right for a while. I could smile for a while. Then I saw you last night. You held my hand so tight when you stopped to say hello. Oh, you wish me well. You couldn't tell that I'd been crying over you. Then you said so long, left me standing all alone and crying, crying. It's hard to the touch of your hand can start me crying. I thought that I was over you, but it's true, so true. I love you even more than I did before, but darling, what can I do? For you don't love me, and I'll always be crying over you, crying over you. Yes, now you're gone, and from this moment on, I'll be crying. You're crying, crying over you. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see, ooh, no, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, 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 stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. In the sky we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountain should crumble to the sea. Ooh, I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And darling, 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 stand by me. Oh, everlasting treasure, or just a moment's pleasure? Can I believe the magic of your sighs? Will you still love me tomorrow? Tonight with words unspoken, you say that I'm the only one. But will my heart be broken when the night meets the morning sun? I like to know that your love is a love I can be sure of. So tell me now, and I won't ask again. Will you still love me tomorrow? So tell me now, and I won't ask again. Will you still love me tomorrow? Will you still love me tomorrow? Love how your eyes close whenever you kiss me, and when I'm away from you, I love how you miss me. I love the way you always treat me tenderly, but darling, most of all, I love how you love me. I love how your heart beats whenever I hold you. I love how you think of me without being told to. I love the way your touch is always heavenly. But darling, most of all, I love how you love me. I love how your eyes close whenever you kiss me, and when I'm away from you, I love how you miss me. I love the way your touch is always heavenly. But darling, most of all, I love how you love me. I love how you hug me. I love how you squeeze me, tease me, please me, love